beginning of the jury?
Yeah, there's one using the bathroom.
Okay.
And then I've got this over here, which is just a blown-up version of what we. Right. Okay.
Oh, Dean, you want to keep getting from. We got an email. Somebody that really gets to say it's on, we're supposed to sign it and send it back. I never did that. You know, that would be reduced to sentence by agreement. Maybe because of the. Especially thinking the state of the. Okay, our panel's back in the court and seated, defending the counsel present, please be seated, everyone, we're ready to resume. Let me ask the jurors.
Judge, 1 second. Careful.
Just want to ask the jurors, we recess for an hour. Is that sufficient time with all 16 of you in there? If you need more time, please let me know that we're ready to begin. But our jury's back and seated, and you were on direct examination. Please continue, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please support it. Detective Houston, if you could step back down over here, I'd appreciate it. Sure. Detective, if you can step over here, I was showing you, I think, this photograph. Does that photograph accurately depict an aerial photograph that you, along with some other officers, took of the Bristol Bay apartment complex within a couple of days of the murders?
Yes, that's correct.
Does it depict the roadways within the Bristol Bay apartment complex?
Yes, it does.
And does it accurately depict that area and how it appeared around the days, within a few days of the murder?
Yes, the area is the same.
Your Honor, offender states M19.
Counsel?
No objection, Your
M
Honor.
19 will be received.
Detective, we were earlier, the states O. And you had described for us that this is the Bristol Bay apartment area down here.
That's correct.
This is 50th Street as it goes back up towards the crime scene.
Correct.
Okay. What is the driving time at about 2 o'clock in the morning, 2:20, 2:15 in the morning, between the crime scene and the Bristol Bay apartment complex?
Less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
About
What-
2.8 miles.
I was going to ask, what's the distance? 2.8 miles?
That's correct.
Okay, so a little less than 3 miles.
Yes.
5 minutes driving time?
At that time, yes.
Okay, and that's obeying the speed limit?
Yes.
And what was the speed limit, or was the speed limit on 50th Street?
I'm not sure. Normally, in that area, 35, maybe it could be a little more than that.
Okay. All right, I'm going to show you some photographs, states in 1 through 11. You had previously testified that you went to the Bristol Bay Apartments in the later part of June 29th, in the later part of the morning of June 29th, 2010, and you went to the area where the Toyota Camry involved in this traffic stop and the murders of the officers was found.
That's correct.
Okay. And that you actually photographed them yourselves?
I did.
Okay, I'm going to show you states in 1. And what does that photograph show?
This is a photograph of the Camry in the same position and condition as when I arrived on the scene.
Okay. And how is it parked in that parking spot?
It is backed in to the parking space, which was on the pretty much the extreme southwest corner area of the complex.
If you're going into that apartment complex, would you describe that area as the very back of the complex?
It is, yes.
Away from the entrance?
Yes,
And the car being backed in, would the back of the car be facing a wooded area?
it is.
What does this photograph show? And this is states in 2.
This is a photograph of the rear of the Camry, which does not display a license plate.
And that's also seen in the dash cam video from Officer Curtis's car?
Correct.
That there's no automobile tag on the car?
Yes,
Now, before you left that area, that scene, did you secure this car in some form or fashion?
I did. I secured the rear's trunk and hood with evidence tape.
Okay, why did you do that?
With the evidence tape that I used, it tears very easily, and that would allow me to determine if anyone entered or tampered with the vehicle from the time that I observed it and to the time it was processed.
And you placed the tape on the seams of the doors in the trunk and the hood?
That's correct.
States in 3. What does that photograph show?
This is the evidence tape that I placed on the vehicle.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that last.
It's the evidence tape that I placed on the vehicle.
States in 4.
This is of the driver's side of the vehicle that's backed in prior to my placing the tape on the door.
States in 5.
This is another photo of the evidence tape after it was placed on the door.
States in 6.
Another photo of the evidence tape placed on the door.
States in 7.
These photograph of the evidence tape placed on the trunk.
States in 8.
This is another photograph of the evidence tape placed on one of the rear doors.
States in 9.
Another photograph of evidence tape placed on the door.
States in 10.
Photograph of the evidence tape placed across the hood ceiling.
And states in 11. Does that show evidence tape on the driver's side,
It does.
between the doors and between the rear passenger door and the rear quarter panel?
That's correct.
And did you release the car to a uniformed officer who met a tower and had it towed to some area?
That's correct. It was towed to the our impound lot and placed inside the secured homicide bay.
Within a day or two of this, did you go back to the Bristol Bay Apartments and, with the assistance of another officer, have some aerial photographs taken of the Bristol Bay Apartments?
Actually, it was quite a time later.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yes. It was,
How much later was it?
July the 28th.
Okay, so later, almost a month later.
That's correct.
All right. Was the area in Bristol Bay Apartments, was it still the same? Did it appear the same?
It was the same.
Okay. And in these photographs that you took, what were you trying to accomplish?
We wanted to first take a photograph of the complex itself so we'd have a record of that in all directions. Also, I wanted to place a vehicle, and I used my department vehicle in the same location as where the camera was found, in conjunction with one of the apartments that was involved in the incident.
Okay. Your Honor, our attender states M 1 through 18 is a composite of 18 photographs.
Counsel?
Is that 1 through 18 or N 1 through 18?
M is in Mary?
Mary, sorry. 1 through 18.
Or I guess it's in
No
Mike.
objection, Your Honor.
M1 through M18 will be received.
Detective, I'm going to show you states M1.
This is an overall view of the apartment complex.
Okay. Would that be from the south facing north?
Yes, that appears to be. Yes, it is.
States M2.
This is another overall view of the apartment complex.
Okay. Would this area here be the entrance to the apartment complex?
Yes,
And what is this roadway out here?
it's North 50th Street.
Okay. And up in this area is Interstate 4 depicted?
Yes, Interstate 4 is up in that area.
And our crime scene would be up here?
Yeah, somewhere up there.
Okay. States M3?
It's another aerial view of the apartment complex from, still looking from the south to the north.
Is this the apartment complex here?
Yes, it is.
All right. States M5?
It's another view of the apartment complex looking from the east to the west.
States M6?
This is another view of the apartment complex looking from the west to the east.
States M7?
Once again, another view of the apartment complex looking to the west.
Your Honor, if I haven't already, I'm going to tender states M19, M is in Mike.
M19 was received, I think.
Oh, it was already received?
M19?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Can everyone see that? Okay. Detective, can you see that okay?
Yes.
All right. Using these two photographs, let's start with this one first, M19. Do you see the building that Miss Brantley was located in that morning?
Yes,
Is this building here?
that is.
Okay. Do you see the area where the red Camry was parked?
Yes.
And in this photograph, when you were having these aerial photographs made, did you mark that area somehow?
Yes, yes.
How did you mark it?
With my vehicle, we were photographing. I parked my vehicle in the same location where the camera was at.
Okay. What kind of vehicle were you driving then?
Silver Ford Taurus.
Okay. And is this your vehicle right here?
It is.
So would this photograph depict the distance between where Miss Brantley was located and where the red Camry was parked?
Yes.
And would it be around a corner?
Yes, it would.
And going back to what's on the TV, M7, is that corner reflected from a different angle?
Yes, it
is. I guess that would be from the east facing west?
Yes.
Right. And would this right here be the building she was found in?
That's correct.
All right. And then your car's parked way over here?
It is.
approximate distance between the two, a couple hundred yards?
Driving distance from my vehicle to the front of 4809, which is the building that Ms. Brantley was found in, is 500 yards.
500 yards?
Yes.
The state's M10, is that the building where Ms. Brantley was located?
Yes, it is.
State's M16, do you see where you've parked your car?
Yes, it's a silver vehicle with the driver's door open.
Can you point to it, please?
I'm sorry, counsel, I didn't get the number.
M16,
Thank you.
M17, can you point to your car again? And one more time, M18. Was Ms. Brantley escorted to the Tampa Police Department headquarters?
Yes,
And where's that located?
411 North Franklin Street in Tampa, Florida.
Okay, 411 North Franklin. How far is that from right here in the courthouse?
Within walking distance, about 4 blocks.
So it's in the downtown area?
Yes,
Was she interviewed?
yes, she was.
Now, you talked about earlier the fact that the Toyota Camry was taken to an impound lot that's controlled by the Tampa Police Department?
That's correct.
And is that an area where vehicles that are involved or used in crimes are taken for latent processing?
Yes,
And Detective, did you at a later time respond to the impound lot?
yes, I did.
And when you arrived, were your evidence seals that you placed on the Camry at the Bristol Bay Apartments, were they still intact?
Yes, they were.
Had you at that time obtained a search warrant for that car?
I did.
And when you went there to the impound lot, why did you go there?
To process the vehicle and attempt to obtain any evidence from the vehicle, either on it or within it.
Did you request the assistance of a crime scene technician?
Yes, I did.
Who was that?
It was, at that time, from Technician Danielle Larkin.
She's now a uniformed officer.
She is.
Detective, you can take a look at these with me real quick. This is states marked for identification P 1 through 27. Have you previously seen these photographs?
Yes, I have.
Did they accurately depict the condition of the Toyota Camry when you arrived at the impound lot to process it and then as it appeared during the processing?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, counsel, what was the prefix?
That's P as in Papa.
P? 1 through 27. Yes.
Your Honor, also tender states P 1 through 27, a composite of 27 photographs.
Counsel,
No objection, Your Honor.
they will be received, P 1 through 27.
Tech, I'm going to go through these photographs with you. This is states P1. What does that photograph show?
It's a photograph of the Toyota Camry backed into the garage at the FL lot.
States P2.
This same vehicle with the photograph in the front.
States P4.
The same vehicle, just a different perspective.
States P5.
Showing the rear of the vehicle with the tape still intact.
States P6.
Close-up of the evidence tape still attached.
States P9.
This is a photograph of the vehicle from the passenger side, which shows the dirt and mud in the wheel wells and dirt on the door, right front door.
States P10.
This is a close-up of the same right front area of the vehicle, which shows the mud splattered on the door and the grass and mud embedded in the fender well.
States P11.
It's another perspective of the same wheel showing the grass.
Did that help show the grass by moving in a little bit closer?
Yes, it does.
States P12.
It's another photograph of the same wheel well showing grass and mud.
States P14.
This shows the right front of the vehicle on the interior part with the door, right front door open.
Was that area processed?
It was.
States P15.
This is the right rear interior section of the vehicle with the right rear door open.
States P16.
It's another perspective showing the interior of the vehicle from the passenger side.
P17.
This shows some items that were on the floor under the right front seat.
What were those items?
There was a laptop computer and a portable DVD player.
States P18.
This is the left rear interior section of the vehicle with the door open.
States P19.
It's the same area of the rear seat from the left rear passenger side.
States P20.
Shows the right or the left front driver's area of the vehicle with the door open.
P21.
Same area, just a close-up.
P22.
The driver's area of the vehicle from the driver's side.
In addition to processing the car, did you and crime scene technician Larkin search the car?
Yes.
And did you locate in your search of the car any shell casings?
No.
Was there an area on the exterior of the car, on the exterior passenger side of the Camry, where you could see what appeared to be some type of evidence that you recognized?
Yes, I did.
What did you recognize that evidence to be?
Well, In reviewing the way the incident took place, my attention was focused on the passenger side and the roof area of the vehicle. I used some oblique lighting, which is angled lighting that'll highlight some trace evidence. And I saw what appeared to be minute particles of what I believe to be blood.
That was on the roof above the rear passenger door?
That's correct.
I show you states P7. Do you see that area in this photograph?
Yes, it was on the roof area here. You can't really see it with a photograph like this.
Okay. The photographs that were taken of the car, did any of the photographs reflect that evidence?
I believe so. It's hard to see. It's small particles, some less than 0.5 millimeter in size. So that's why we use the lighting so it'll kind of highlight it. Based on my training and experience, this blood evidence was from high velocity blowback. So the blood particles would have been very fine, almost a mist.
What is high velocity blowback? What is that?
When you fire a weapon in close proximity to a target, and this would
I'm
be,
going to object,
Legal objection.
sir.
What's your legal objection?
Lack of expertise in this.
I'm sorry?
Lack of expertise in this particular area to give.
Rephrase your question.
Had you seen that type of evidence before?
yes, hundreds of times.
Associated with gunshots?
Yes,
And was that area processed?
yes, it was.
Honor, I'll tender the witness.
Any questions, counsel?
Yes, thank you.
You want the witness standing, or
No, sir, he can resume his seat.
Ms. Harmon, would you move this, please?
Yes.
Good afternoon, Detective Houston.
Good afternoon.
I want to start with your role in this investigation. You said something, you were at that time a detective, is that correct?
That's correct.
With the Tampa Police Department.
Yes,
Were you a homicide detective?
yes, I was.
Okay. You said you were designated as the crime scene detective, is that correct? Or-
That's correct, in charge of processing, making sure the scene was processed.
Okay. Now, obviously, there were a number of detectives involved in this investigation, probably scores of them,
Correct.
right? Is one person, is it your practice in the Tampa Police Department, the Homicide Division, to designate a particular detective to kind of be responsible for the processing, gathering of evidence and so on from the crime scene?
Where there's a detective assigned for each particular case, it doesn't necessarily mean the same detective.
Right, I understand that, but y'all's way of handling it is one detective is designated to kind of oversee that process, is that correct?
That's correct.
It might not be you in another case, but it's a detective.
Correct.
All right. Now, are you trained as a crime scene technician, or do you have technical training in collecting evidence, doing testing to ascertain whether they're fingerprints, or using luminol, or any of those other kinds of processes that crime scene techs do?
As far as the chemicals, no. The basic crime scene processing, like latent prints, sure, we've all been trained in that.
But you're not yourself a crime scene technician?
No.
Okay. You mentioned that you arrived at the crime scene at 03:20 hours.
That's correct.
And the shooting occurred, I think everybody agrees, somewhere around 12:30 a.m.
Right, just before that.
So approximately, you got there approximately 2 hours after the shooting. Would that be a close enough estimate?
That's close enough, yes.
When you got there, were other detectives already on the scene?
No,
Were the crime scene technicians on the scene?
you know, I don't remember if they were on the scene or not, but they would not have started processing without me or the detective assigned.
Right. Well, then that's what I'm getting at, just so the folks on the jury understand how that process works. When you're designated as the crime scene detective, you basically are directing the crime scene technicians to process the scene.
That's
Correct?
correct.
I mean, you're supervising them, I guess perhaps would be a better word.
Right,
Okay. So they're not gonna start the process until you or someone is designated as the crime scene detective.
right.
Okay. So that's sometime after 3:20 is when the process of processing the scene began by the crime scene technicians.
Yes.
Okay. How long did that go on?
Somewhere around 8 o'clock in the morning. After 8, it was after daylight.
Okay. So approximately 5 hours thereabouts?
Yes.
And when you arrived, had the perimeter, crime scene perimeter tape already been put in place?
Yes.
You don't know when that happened, however.
No.
Okay. Now, you indicated in one of your reports that you had crime scene mappers. You called for crime scene mappers. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What exactly is a I can't say it, crime scene mapper?
Well, they take, they'll create a diagram of the crime scene, take measurements of the evidence using a GPS basically, so it's very specific in where each piece of evidence is at, and measure the road weight and the distance. If I have a particular thing I want them to measure a distance on, they're able to do that
I see.
with great accuracy.
And they generate diagrams to illustrate the measurements that you've just described?
That's correct.
Okay. Are there specific crime scene technicians who are skilled at doing that and do nothing but that kind of work?
Well, it's not a crime scene technician, it's a detective that do it, and the ones that are trained, for the most part, for us to do that. There are some uniformed officers that are, but we refer to the hit-and-run detectives who are trained on
I
that.
see. So it's a detective who's had specific training in that kind of mapping of the crime scene?
Yes, and we utilized on this case 3 detectives, yes.
You recall
Well,
who
it was
they
2 corporal and 2 corporal and 2 detectives.
You recall who they were?
Yeah, it was Corporal Kevin Petrie, Detective Nick Slovakis, and Detective Rod Glider.
Okay. You would have been supervising them as well,
Yes,
generally speaking?
yes.
Okay. Now, you noted when you were testifying in answer to the Assistant State Attorney's questions that there were where the firearms were missing. Is that what you said? I thought I heard you say that, and I may have been mistaken. Firearms that belonged to the officers.
No, that was in the report that they were missing. They had already been secured.
Okay. So somebody else, some other police officers removed those gun belts and guns prior to you getting there? Is that the idea?
Right, Lieutenant Roberts had those secured.
Okay, I assume that was for security reasons
Sure.
as well as evidentiary reasons.
Yes.
When you arrived, had the officers already been removed and taken to the hospital?
That's correct.
Okay. So you didn't actually see the scene where they were with them present there?
No, not in person.
Okay. When evidence is collected, and you mentioned in several of your reports, I'm not going to bother to go through all of it, you answered to Mr. Harmon's questions about certain things that were collected, items of evidence that were collected at various places.
Yes, sir.
Did you personally collect that, or do you delegate that to a crime scene technician?
No, the crime scene technician collects it. It helps to maintain a chain of custody on the evidence and eliminates a person being in it.
So they would be the ones that actually dusted for fingerprints, took samples of biological material or whatever else might be involved?
Correct.
Okay. And they would also be taking the photographs, is that correct?
For the most part, I usually take my own, not just this scene, but all scenes, I take my own photos also.
So would it be correct to say that on this particular case, there were several people taking photographs of the same crime scene?
Well, the crime scene technician, Ms. Williams, and I did also.
Both of you? Okay. And of course, there were some other scenes you mentioned where you went where other photographs were taken.
Correct.
Were others taking photographs there as well as yourself?
No, just mine on that one because nothing was going to be processed there.
I see. Okay. Did you actually personally view the shoe prints or footprints? I'm not sure. I assume they're probably shoe prints that were near the fence that have been described by yourself and other witnesses?
Yes, I did.
Are you familiar with the crime scene technician's capacity to both photograph and make impressions of those kinds of prints?
Yes.
Was that done in this case?
They were photographed, the impressions were not. They lacked any real detail, and it was in sand, so it makes it even more difficult, but there was no real detail to the prints.
So the quality of the footprints was such that it was insufficient to make what would be an identification. That would be the situation where you try to take an imprint of the print itself.
That's correct.
And you didn't do it here for that reason?
That's correct.
Okay. Tell me again how it was that you first learned about the red Camry vehicle that was alleged to have been involved in this matter, how it was discovered and how you got that information.
I was at the command post, which is directly across the street from the crime scene. I received, I want to say it was Sergeant Hinkle, which would have been my sergeant, that the vehicle had been located. Now there was, as mentioned, scores of officers and deputies looking for both suspect and the vehicle. That was one of the areas that was checked. I don't know specifically who found it, but I know it was law enforcement that found the vehicle.
Okay. Do you happen to know how they identified it? Obviously, it didn't have a tag.
I identified it.
By?
The vehicle identification number.
Okay. Was that listed in Miss Brantley's name?
The vehicle?
Registration on the vehicle, yes?
No.
Okay. You simply matched the number?
Yes. From the paperwork that was in Officer Curtis's vehicle.
The registration information he had obtained?
That's correct.
Now, you described Bristol Bay Apartments. Why did you proceed to that place, other than the fact the car was found there? Were there other things you were looking for?
No, I was notified that the car was found. That's why I went there.
Okay. Well, what I'm asking you is, did you also know that Miss Brantley lived there or stayed there?
I did not at the time.
Okay, so that wasn't part of the information you had at that time?
I did not have that information.
Okay. In one of your reports, you list items collected, and I'm just curious about the wording of it. I'm counsel for your purposes. I'm on Master Discovery, page 61.
His report?
Yes. You have a list of things of items that were recovered or collected, and 1 and 2 are Tampa Police Unit 609 and 738, and beside them the words "not collected." Now, are those the 2 police vehicles?
It is.
I was a little confused about why you would put that they were not collected. Can you explain that, please?
Well, basically, that's for purpose of the crime scene technician. In other words, the crime scene technician did not collect those vehicles.
Somebody else did, is that the idea?
Yes,
Okay. So you didn't, and the people you were supervising didn't, but someone else did?
right. As far as Officer Curtis's vehicle, Officer Gonzalez
Okay.
took that vehicle.
That clears that up, thank you. Now, you talked about finding the camera being found. When exactly did, in relation to the crime itself, how long after and on what day did you receive that information that the car had been found?
It was the same day. It was a little after 10 a.m., I believe, on June 29th.
So that would be Wednesday,
Yes.
or would it still be Tuesday?
Well, it was the 29th. I don't know what day.
I believe
it
the
was.
29th is Tuesday.
Okay, then that's the day. it
Same,
was.
same day?
The
but-
same day.
Or 10 a.m.
Right. I finished processing the crime scene, went over to the command post, and then within just a couple of hours, the vehicle was found.
Okay. So the car was found some roughly 8 hours after, or 10 hours after, or 9.5 hours after the crime itself.
Right.
You mentioned viewing the car,
Yes.
looking into it, searching it. Later you searched it.
Right.
First you sealed it.
Right.
Is that the word you all used when you put that tape on that you were telling the folks in the jury about?
That's correct.
Okay. And you turned it over to a uniformed police officer,
Yes.
and he had it towed.
Yes. Towed to the impound lot and followed the vehicle there.
Okay. Is there someone always with that car once it's sealed until it gets to the police impound yard?
Yes, that's
A person,
the way it's
I mean.
supposed to be. Yes.
Okay. Some police officer.
Right.
Okay. Did you, at some point, explore whether there was a video camera in the Bristol Bay apartment complex?
Yes.
And were you able to recover any kind of video from that complex?
The machine was recovered and reviewed by Detective Tyndall, and I was advised there was nothing of evidentiary value on it.
So nothing that you know of that was helpful in the investigation?
That's correct.
You mentioned what you called apparent high-velocity blood spatter.
That's correct.
Did you have the crime scene technicians obtain samples of that?
I did.
Are you the detective who then would submit those into evidence and send them to laboratories or to experts to try to analyze? Are you the one that would be responsible for that?
Not on this case.
Okay. Would that have been Detective Henry Duran, the lead detective on the case?
Possibly. I don't know who he assigned to do it.
Oh, I see. So there may have been a specific detective assigned to do that?
Right. He was the case agent, so he may have done it himself. He may have assigned a detective to do it.
But in any case, it wasn't you?
Correct.
So you don't know what was taken, what wasn't taken,
No.
as far as for testing purposes?
Exactly.
Then at the impound, were you there during the entire processing of the red Camry?
Yes, I was.
So from the beginning to the end, you were there with the crime scene technicians who did the actual processing?
Yes.
Okay. And you all dusted for fingerprints,
She did.
right? What other kinds of evidence searching did you have done on that car?
Well, other than the physical searching of the interior and exterior itself, she dusted the vehicle and the contents for latent prints. She also took swabs in an attempt to obtain DNA from the interior, which would be the steering wheel, the gear shifter, radio,
Yes.
doorknobs, door handles, things like that.
Things that people might touch in a car.
Exactly,
Sometimes they leave cells, skin cells there.
correct.
I see. So all that testing was done of that vehicle?
All the collection was done. I don't
Yes,
know
all,
about-
that type of testing
Yes.
is what I meant to ask, or that kind of evidence collection was done.
Yes,
And you don't know what the result of that was?
no, I do not.
Now, going back to the, I believe it was photograph P, as in Paul 7, that you were shown by the Assistant State Attorney, and you were asked to describe what you described as tiny particles of what you believed were apparent blood.
Right.
I wasn't clear in listening to your testimony. Was that on the roof of the car? Is that what you said?
Yes,
And it was on the rear passenger roof?
on the passenger side of the vehicle, yes.
But was it external or internal?
External,
So it was on the outside of the roof along the passenger side rear door?
yes, right in that area. There were several particles.
Okay. Give me just a second here, to make sure I haven't overlooked something. You mentioned a search warrant,
Correct.
and that search warrant was for the car?
That's correct.
So before you sealed the car and had it towed,
Correct.
but before you searched it, you got a judge to issue a search warrant?
Correct.
Okay. And the items collected from that car, did you mention a lady named Danielle Larkin?
Yes, that was a forensics technician.
Was she the one who did the processing with you of the vehicle?
That's correct.
And so any items that were found in the vehicle or on the vehicle, she would have actually collected and turned over to you? Is that the way that would work?
No, she would have collected them and turned them into evidence in the evidence section.
So you wouldn't be involved in that process? I mean, of putting them into evidence?
No, not unless it's something in particular, and with this case, I don't remember anything like that.
Okay. You described gun belts, vests, protective vests, and so on.
Right.
Were those items of evidence taken from the hospital? Is that where they were, or were they at the scene?
The items I described were at the scene.
And they had apparently then been taken off the officers in the process of trying to administer medical assistance?
Correct.
And so you collected clothing items or personal items that the officers may have been wearing only at the crime scene?
Those items were collected, not by me, but they were collected.
Okay.
The forensics technician collected them.
Okay, that happened before you got there?
No.
But you were present and supervising, is that correct?
Right, if you're referring to the ones that were in the photograph.
That's what I'm
of the vest,
referring to.
Yes.
Yes,
That
okay.
would have happened after I got there during the supervision of the crime scene.
Okay. Did you collect any clothing or any other items from any other place?
I did not.
Okay. I have just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I appreciate it. Thank you. Detective, I have no further questions for you at this time. Thank you, sir.
State anything further?
Yes. Detective, in the cross-examination, you were asked about the time that the murders had occurred, and I believe you said a little before 12:30.
Right,
Could it have been 2:30?
2:30.
2:30, okay, so 12:30, that was just a mistake.
Yes.
Okay.
It was like 2:20, 2:21, somewhere around there.
All right, and that's according to the dash cam video
Yes,
and the response
And-
times of the responding officers?
right, and the 911 calls,
Okay.
yes.
Counsel had asked you, were there clothing from any other items or any other items of clothing that were collected, and you said not at the scene.
Now it's the scene.
Okay. Were both officers' duty sidearms and duty belts secured pretty quickly by responding officers?
Yes, and that would have been prior to my arrival.
Okay. And were those collected at a later time?
They were collected initially by Lieutenant Roberts, and then eventually, I want to say Detective Duran viewed them.
Now, the Camry that was found at the Bristol Bay Apartments, when you arrived there, were there other law enforcement units there?
Oh, yes, there were probably 150 officers there.
Okay, so a lot of officers,
Yes,
a lot of agencies.
yes.
After the murders had occurred, and the video had been seen within the hours after the shooting, did that area south of the shooting scene going down South 50th Street, did that become very saturated with law enforcement?
It was, the entire area was. There were searches being done for within all the local motels, hotels, apartment complexes, so forth, for the vehicle.
Okay. And when you arrived and came into contact with the red Camry at the back of Bristol Bay Apartments, were there other law enforcement officers standing there guarding it?
Yes,
And when it was eventually towed from the Bristol Bay Apartments, you said earlier that you left uniformed officers to stand by to wait for a tow truck driver?
that's correct.
So the car was actually towed by a tow truck driver
By a tow truck, yes.
and escorted by Tampa Police Department officers
That's correct.
to your impound lot?
Yes.
Now, counsel asked you questions about the scuff marks that were found in the sand or foot marks that were found near the zipper on top of the fence in the apartment complex just north of the crime scene.
That's correct.
I want to go back to that real quick. States A102, you said earlier that those evidence markers show those areas where the scuff marks are found, the ones on the ground.
The ones on the ground, correct.
Okay. States A103 is kind of a more close-up of that.
That's correct.
States 21, and then a close-up of the area states, states A109 and states A110 shows evidence marker 21 in the area around it. Now, counsel had asked you about why there was no casting done in that area, and you had said, number one, I think you said something about the detail.
Right, the shoe print, it lacked any detail. It was just a partial, and there was nothing that you could actually definitively match up to any particular shoe.
Okay. And when you're looking at shoe print impressions or shoe sole impressions, you're looking for detail of the tread itself?
The tread itself, some have if you get a good impression, it'll have a logo maybe on the bottom of the shoe that you can actually tell the brand. If there's anything, and it's just rare that you'll get it, but it's kind of like a tire print. If there's an anomaly in it, you can possibly match it to the shoe that it came from.
Okay. So without that tread, you really can't do a comparison. Without well, let me rephrase.
Specific details of it, right.
Without having good detail, I guess, you really can't do a comparison.
Right.
Okay. And also, the medium that it's left in this case, sand, that also affects casting?
It does. As far as the casting itself, and I've tried to have a lot of castings done with tire tracks and shoe tracks, and it's very difficult in sand because of the texture, and it kind of crumbles around.
Okay. States A111, item marker or evidence marker 20, and then a close-up of that area. States A113, which shows evidence marker 18, and a close-up of, I'm assuming, these two areas to the side of 18.
Right, even in the photographs, it's difficult to
You
see.
can kind of see the vague shape of a foot, but there's no detail in it.
Exactly.
Now, counsel had asked you about officers that were doing what's called crime scene mapping to
Correct.
create a crime scene diagram.
Right.
Right. A crime scene diagram is a drawing that depicts locations of evidence within your crime scene.
Correct.
And then distances, measured distances.
Yes.
And crime scene diagrams are not normally done to scale, are they?
Not normally, but in this case, it would have been.
Because of the mapping?
Yes.
Now, the mapping is showing the distance in inches or feet between evidence,
Right.
and then between the evidence and some standard point that's created.
Yes.
Okay. So all you're getting out of that is its position, which is depicted by photographs, and the distances between the evidence.
Right.
So we would have the distances between, say, that disposable razor and a flashlight,
Right.
or between the disposable razor and that rut that was left by the Toyota Camry in the grass and in the sand.
Yes.
And you indicated that you take photographs when you are assigned as the detective over the crime scene.
Correct.
Do you do that to assist you in supplementing and documenting your own report?
It does assist, and also I don't watch every single photo that's taken by the forensics technician. So if there's something an angle that I want something photographed at, I'll take it myself, just in case it isn't captured by the forensics technician, because I don't examine every photo they take on scene.
Right. And going back to states, P, as in Papa. We had gone through these photographs, and I think I skipped over one here. I want to show it to you, or a couple. States P24. You recognize what that photograph shows?
It's the interior of the Camry, Toyota Camry on the.
Would this be the shift lever here for the transmission?
It is.
And the front passenger seat?
That's correct.
Okay, and some items found on the ground here.
Right.
It looks like the glove compartment's open.
It is. The glove compartment and the center console were open when I initially viewed the vehicle at the apartment complex.
Okay. And then you talked about in states P25 there was a laptop and some item found in the back seat.
Correct.
Okay. And then states P26. We didn't see these before. Where were those located?
That was also under the back seat on the passenger side.
Okay. And then P27 shows the trunk.
Yes.
Now, in this car, as in a lot of cars, was there a displayed vehicle identification number?
Yes, there was.
And was that displayed on the dashboard?
It was on the driver's side.
And in viewing that vehicle identification number, were you able to match that to paperwork located on the front seat of Officer Curtis's car?
Yes, I was.
I believe you were asked questions about that.
Yes.
And so you identified this vehicle as being the same vehicle that was involved in the stop
That's correct.
by that method.
Yes.
Pen to the witness, Your Honor.
Hey, this witness be released.
I'd ask that he remain under standby, Your Honor.
Thank you for still under subpoena, you're free to go about your business. Your next witness, please.
Enalia Keene.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give in this class be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
Right to swear, ma'am?
And please tell us your full name.
Yanalia King,
Spell your first name, please,
YNALIA,
and your last name.
KEEN.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Keene, how old are you, ma'am?
I'm 20.
All right, thank you. Back in June 29th of 2010, were you living in Tampa, Florida?
Yes, sir.
And were you living in an apartment directly off of 50th Street?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember the address?
3212.
Excuse me, Your Honor, she has a very soft voice. Could you please ask her to speak up?
3212.
Thank you.
Would that be
You're welcome.
3212 North 50th Street?
Yes, sir.
All right, ma'am.
Do me a favor, don't put that so close to you because it reverberates. Just get it back away from the microphone just a little bit.
Okay.
Still speak up though, pick it up, go ahead.
All right. Ms. Keene, the location where you were living back in June of 2010, was that in a apartment building?
Yes, sir.
And in fact, was that apartment building just a few feet off of 50th Street?
Yes, sir.
Were you living at that location with anybody?
Yes, sir.
And who were you living with at that time?
My mom,
What's your mom's name?
Dolores King,
And anyone else?
and my aunt,
And what's her name?
Wislin.
What
I'm
is
sorry,
that?
ma'am?
Wislin Lewis Paul.
Could you spell the first name for the court reporter? Wislin?
Yes. WISL. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough. Did you have children in the house too?
Just one.
Let me show you a enlarged aerial photograph that's marked for identification and it has been admitted as Exhibit V, as in Victor. Have you seen this photograph before this moment? Have I shown this to you?
Yes, sir.
Within the last couple days?
Yes, sir.
All right. On the top end of this exhibit, there's an orange box with the address 3216 North 50th Street. Do you see that box?
Yes, sir.
All right, and it points to what appears to be a white building. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
3212 North 50th Street is where you lived at that time in June 29th of 2010. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Where is that in relation to this apartment building that was marked?
Right here.
Okay, you're showing it by where I'm pointing now?
Yes, sir.
Is that an apartment, was that also an apartment building that it was the same type of building that you were living in?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That was a bad question.
Yeah, I know. It's the same building. Though.
You were living in the same kind of building you were
Yes.
living in. It didn't make any sense. All right, let me start that one over, okay, ma'am? The building you were living in, was it the same type of building as was located at 3216 North 50th Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Your apartment, was it Well, first, how many floors were in that apartment building?
2,
Was your apartment on the top or bottom floor?
bottom floor.
Okay, were there windows that looked out where you could see the surrounding area?
Yes, sir.
Okay. At approximately 2 o'clock in the morning of June 29th of 2010, did you attempt to leave your house?
Yes, sir.
Tell us about what you were going to do and where you're going.
To the Shell gas station
Okay, why'd you want to go to the Shell gas station at that hour?
to go get something to snack on.
Okay. Is the location of the Shell gas station shown on this aerial photograph?
No,
Okay,
it's like right there.
at the very, very bottom of the photograph?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The top of this photograph has been described as being the direction north.
Yes.
Okay, so the Shell would have been south from your location, south on 50th Street, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How were you gonna get to the Shell?
Walk.
Okay, were you gonna go, was it your idea to go alone?
No, sir.
Who was going with you?
My mom's friend.
Your mom's friend?
Yes.
And who is that?
Renee.
Renee, okay. Did you actually get outside of your apartment to go?
Yes, we were standing at the front door waiting on one more person to come.
I'm sorry, waiting on one more person to come?
Yes.
Okay. And that was sometime in the 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 a.m. hour on this June 29th morning of
Yes.
2010?
Yes.
Okay. Did anything happen that caused you to change your mind about going down 50th Street to the Shell?
Yes.
What was that?
Well, after I turned around and told them to come on, that's when I heard the gunshots, and then I had ran back in.
Okay. Let me go over that in some detail with you, okay?
Okay.
All right, Ms. Keene, had you actually closed the apartment door before you heard the gunshots?
No.
Okay. So were you on the way of, everybody on the way of getting out of the apartment to go to the store?
Yes, it was me and my sister standing at the door.
Okay. How many gunshots did you hear, ma'am? Do you recall?
I heard 2.
Did you see the gun being fired that fired those shots?
No.
Okay. When you heard those gunshots, were you able to see a person who fired the gun?
No, I just seen somebody standing on the outside of the car, but I never seen no face.
Okay. Let me ask you this. From your apartment, were you able, when you were leaving your apartment with your mom, as you're starting to go out to the Shell station, did you see any patrol vehicle on 50th Street, any Tampa Police Department officer?
Yes.
Okay. Was it down the street from your apartment?
Yes, a little up the road.
Okay. Now, again, showing you the enlarged aerial exhibit V, there is a orange box with a line that's to a red and yellow circle that says incident scene. Was the patrol vehicle that you saw in near this incident scene?
Yes.
Okay. You've indicated you saw somebody down there near the car, but you were not able to identify him at that point?
Yes.
Okay. When you heard the gunshots, what did you do?
I turned back around and went in the house.
And why'd you do that? Is that a stupid question?
No,
Okay. You did that for what reason?
to protect myself.
Okay. And did everybody else that was with you go back inside the house?
No,
Okay.
my sister was still standing to the door. I had to go back out the door and tell her to come in the house.
All right. Ultimately, did everybody get back inside your
Yes.
apartment? Okay. And did your mother instruct you to do anything concerning the lights?
Yes,
What were you instructed to do?
to cut off the lights.
To turn off the lights?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me show you some other photographs that are in evidence, ma'am. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show these to you individually, and then we're going to publish them on that screen. And if you have any difficulty seeing them from where you're sitting, let me know, okay? But I want to give you a chance to look at them. These are photographs A95 through A101 inclusive. If you just take a moment just to look at those photographs. Okay, ma'am. In the last few days, have I shown you black and white versions of these same photographs?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And do those photographs that you have before you, do those fairly and accurately show the part of the concrete parking lot that separates the apartment building you lived in from the one at 3216 right across the way?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Publishing Exhibit A95. Can you see that well enough from there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Do you recognize that as the sidewalk that separates 50th Street on the right from the parking lot near your apartment complex?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize the back of that red car that was parked there that night?
Yes, sir.
And whose car was that?
My mom's.
Did you get good enough look at that photograph to determine who is shown standing outside here on the far left of the photograph?
Yes.
And who's that?
My mom.
Okay. And was your mom's car parked at that location that evening after she'd gotten home and at the time you were trying to leave?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but what exhibit is this?
This is A95.
Is that received?
Yes, sir.
It was, Your Honor.
Showing you another photograph, A96. Essentially, is that just showing the other cars in the parking lot that night?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And A97, more cars in the parking lot in the corner of 3216. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, is 3216, is that the apartment that you can look out your window and look a few feet away?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's shown and marked on this big aerial photograph I showed you a minute ago?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, showing you State's Exhibit A98. Does this photograph accurately show a small lower chain link fence that separates essentially a yard area from the parking lot?
Yes, sir.
And on the other side of that small lower chain link fence, on the back of the yard, was there a much taller fence?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you up close Exhibit A100 because it loses kind of some definition when we publish it, okay? But I'm going to put this one up next. Does A100 show the larger chain link fence that's on the back of that property?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm publishing Exhibit A100. Now, and I'm going to leave it up there for your testimony here in the next few minutes, okay, ma'am? Now, ma'am, after you were all inside the apartment and your mom told you to cut off the lights, what did you do?
I had read to the kitchen window
And why did you do that?
to see where he was running at,
Just to see what,
which direction he was running in.
and who were you looking to see who was running? Who were you looking for?
The suspect that was running through the parking lot.
Okay. At the time you heard the gunshots, you've indicated there was someone outside the car, of the patrol car,
Yes,
but you couldn't make them out. Is that right?
yes.
When did you first see what you've described as a man running? Where was that man?
He was running in the front of in front where the sidewalk is at. He was running there, and then when he cut through the parking lot, he couldn't have went around, so he had to jump that small fence, and then he jumped that gate right there.
Did you see this?
Yes, and when he jumped the first fence, I was like, where he went at? And then that's when I ran to the kitchen window and peeked out the blind, and that's when I seen him go across the other gate.
And you saw the man jump both the short and the higher chain link fence that are shown on these photographs, A95 through 800, that you looked at a few minutes ago?
Yes.
Okay. Let me show you again. Exhibit A95. I'm going to show you close up and then publish it on the screen again. Okay, does A95 show you the location near the sidewalk where you next saw the man running into the apartment complex?
Yes.
Okay. Was he running up this sidewalk towards your apartment building?
Yes.
Okay. And then which way did he turn? Did he start to run into the apartment complex across the chain link fences, or into the street?
No, he ran towards the apartment.
Okay. And showing you A97. Do you see the smaller fence there?
Yes.
Do you see where he jumped over that fence?
Yes. He had to jump right there.
Okay, I'm gonna put this on the big screen.
Okay.
All right. There is a sign that's attached to the fence in red and white that says "Parking for tenants only. All others will be towed." Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to publish it on the screen. A97. Where in relation to that sign did he jump? To the over it, to the left of the sign, or to the right of the sign? As you're looking at the picture. Do you remember?
No.
Okay, but he
I just-
jumped
Yeah.
that short fence somewhere near the sign?
Yes.
Okay. And looking through your kitchen window, did you see him go through the yard?
No. I know he jumped the fence. He had to go through the yard to
Okay.
hit the
You
jump
didn't see
out
him through the
fence.
yard. Did you go to another window then?
Yes.
And once you got to the second window,
That's when I seen him jumping the other gate.
you saw him jump the taller fence?
Yes.
Okay. Showing you A100. Can you see it from there?
Yes.
Do you recall, or were you able to tell us the day specifically where on that taller fence he jumped, or you just know he jumped it?
I just know he jumped it.
Okay, you saw this.
Yes.
All right, now. Now, what do you recall about the race of the individual you saw running into the apartment complex and jumping these fences? What race?
He was black,
Do you remember the sex of the person?
male.
Do you remember anything further about what the individual was wearing?
No, just blue jeans.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the build, his build? Skinny, medium, fat, anything like that?
He was skinny.
Okay. Did you get a good enough look at that individual to be able to identify him?
Well, yes, while he was running across the front gate, I was looking at him. But I didn't see his face though because it was dark.
Okay. Did you ultimately were you ultimately shown a series of photographs to see if you could identify the person?
Yes.
All right. And were you able to select a photograph and identify that person as the photograph of the person you saw running?
Yes.
Okay. And had you seen enough of his face to be able to make that identification?
No, just like the next day they had came out.
Okay.
That's when I had identified them.
That's what I'm talking about now.
Yes. And then like a couple of days later,
Okay.
I had seen it on
All right.
TV.
Let me stop you for just a second, okay?
Okay.
To make sure we're on the same timeline.
Okay.
Did a Tampa Police Department detective come out to see you the next day, June 30th of 2010?
Yes, I think it was that day.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I said, yes, I think it was that day.
All right. And did he show you a piece of paper with 6 photographs on it?
Yes.
Okay. And were you asked to determine whether the photograph of the person you saw jumping over the fence was in those series?
Yes.
And did you see the photograph of the man that you saw jumping over the fence?
Yes.
Okay. And did you make any kind of mark on that photograph and put your name on that photograph to
Yes.
show? Okay. Ma'am, I'm going to show you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit J. Okay? You recognize that exhibit as being the very same photographic lineup containing 6 photos that the detective showed you on June 30th of 2010.
Yes.
All right. And did you circle one of the photographs?
Yes.
And you did that with your own hand in red ink, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And did you sign that piece of paper on that date indicating that you were the person who was making this identification?
Yes, sir.
You want to move State's Exhibit J into evidence?
Counsel,
No objection, Your Honor.
J will be received.
Did you write down in print 2 different statements on the lower left-hand corner of State's Exhibit J?
I don't remember this one.
Okay. Do you remember either of the statements? Pardon, let me start this over. Is your handwriting on this print here?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
You don't remember
No.
writing the first part?
No.
But you remember that's your handwriting?
Yes.
Okay. There's another sentence on the bottom lower left-hand corner, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you write that?
Yes.
And what did you write?
That he had ran by my house when the police was shot.
Okay. May I publish your own?
Yes.
State's Exhibit J. May I have one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
Now, Ms. Keene, after you saw that man run between the apartment buildings and jump the fences, at some point, did you and your mother leave the apartment and go down to where the police vehicle was?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did you see the 2 officers that have been shot still
Yes.
there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did your mother call 911 from that location?
Yes, sir.
Did you stay at that location and provide your name to the police and tell the police that night what you saw?
Yes, sir.
May I have one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further, I intend to witness.
Questions, counsel?
May we approach this briefly?
Yes, sir. The balance of this witness's testimony will take us well past the hour and a half you've been waiting, and it's right after lunch, so let's go ahead and take our afternoon break now. Please bear with us, we'll bring you back in very about 20 minutes. And if you need longer, that's all right.
All right.
Okay, our jury's left, and I'll be seated. Ma'am, we're going to recess now. You can go out in the lobby and do what you need to do. You need to be back at 10 minutes after 3. Just come on back in the courtroom, sit in the witness chair. In the break, you cannot talk to these lawyers unless they're both together at the same time, all right? We'll bring you back in about 20 minutes.
Your Honor, would you advise her about whether she can talk to anyone about her testimony?
Yeah, you can't talk to anybody about anything, about the case. You can talk about football, but you can't talk about the case.
Thank you.
Sally.